Hello everyone, this is Berna Köker-Polcak. Today is Friday, July 19th, and I am with Tina FiveAsh'le from Australia for the first event of the 2024 Grief and Death Festival. Tina, I'm so delighted that you have joined us today. I'm
Oh,
so I'm so grateful for your generosity. Thank you
well,
so much for your time.
it's a enormous honor for me to be part of this and be invited. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, as this is the very first time of the festival this year, I would like to share our intention again with the audience. We are going through times when wars and distractions, unfortunately, have become a part of our daily lives, especially with the wars in Ukraine and Palestine, making it difficult for all of us to individually grasp the extent of the losses actually and the grief that we feel as a result. And as a community, Grief and Death platform, we are hoping that we can be each other's eyes, mirrors, and witnesses in solidarity by honoring our grief. So before we start our conversation, I would like to introduce you to our audience. Tina, you have a very rich biography. So I would like to give a summary of this extensive and then rich bio. So please feel free to add anything you would like to add later. Tina FiveAsh'le is a photo artist engaged in multiple forms of contemporary photo media. The practice of Tina spans more than 3 decades and a master of visual storytelling and conjuring illusion. FiveAsh'le is known for her powerful cinematic still images and animated lenticular works that transform fiction into otherworldly realism. FiveAsh'le is the recipient of multiple awards and has exhibited widely, both nationally and internationally. And in 2021, Tina was awarded a PhD from the Australian National University Research School of Humanities and the Arts, majoring in visual arts, investigating intersections between art, science, and spirituality. Tina's research engaged with experimental photographic approach to the visual representation of death and imagined conceptions of an afterlife based on scientific studies into the near-death experience. An offshoot of this research was the ambitious undertaking of an online socially engaged research project titled the Death Letter Project, exploring contemporary perspectives of death in Australia. I'm not telling more about the project now because we will talk about it later. But as I said, this is the summary of your bio. Would you like to add anything?
Or just we'll talk about it as we go, but the Death Letter Project began in 2014. That's when I had the idea for it, and I'm just beginning a second series now.
So, yeah. Okay. I'm happy that we will talk about it later. It's a great project actually. And before we met physically, actually, I met you through your project, Death Letter Project that I mentioned. I remember my reaction when I first saw the project. I said, wow, it's such a fantastic idea, such a fantastic project. But probably due to it's my weak memory, I'm not good with names. I forgot your name, not the project. And one day this year, a friend of mine mentioned a beautiful photo exhibition in where we live in Newtown. Let's say a quick hello to Danny maybe from here as well. I'm sure she will listen to it later. And it was the last day of the exhibition, and me and my husband, we rushed into the gallery, and we have been lucky enough to see it. Then I met you there face to face, and we are so impressed by the photos. Then I realized that project belongs to you. That's you, Tina. Yeah, then we caught up for a coffee, and here we are. We know death is one of the most pervasive themes in art history. Every culture has rituals surrounding death, appearing in different art forms all the time. And As I mentioned in your biography, you have been investigating intersections between art, science, and spirituality. And along with that, you have been experimenting on visual representation of death through photography. So you're helping people contemplate death. This is what I see, whether it's their own or their loved ones. And my observation is that you are deeply engaged with death as a theme. So how did it start for you to choose death as a theme, and where did you get your inspiration from?
That's a good question. So I grew up not really being informed about death at all. Like I wasn't religious, wasn't particularly from a religious family, and death for me meant disappeared loved ones. For instance, my grandmother died, and that's it. You don't see the body, you don't see anything. Same with my grandfather. And so that, and my other sort of information from death came from the television sort of thing. So it was just, I wasn't ever sort of really thinking about death, apart from, it's kind of scary and people just disappear. But when I was quite young, a teenager, I heard about a woman who had drowned and survived, and she described the experience of dying once she surrendered to the fact that like the fight was over to live. She said that even the feeling of water, like the water filling her lungs, was blissful, and she kind of entered this like paradise, blissful paradise, where it was very, very serene. Anyway, at the time I didn't think anything of it. Like I just it seemed like a fantasy, or I just didn't entertain it as a reality at all. So it just sort of was in my head somewhere. And then meanwhile, in my 20s and 30s, I was having panic attacks about dying. And there's a name for it, which is thanatophobia, which is like just fear of death that causes anxiety, and it can be like acute panic attacks. So I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and I would just suddenly like remember I was going to die one day, and my vision of death was just, everything was black. I was on my own. There was nothing, there was no light, there was no one else. And it just, I just couldn't come to any comprehension or understanding of why we would be put through life when that is awaiting us. I hadn't really thought at the time that in my imagination I was actually conscious, like I'm consciously observing myself in this environment. That was something interesting I realized later. But anyway, in about my mid-30s, I stumbled upon a book about near-death experiences in a secondhand bookshop. Like it was in a like a $2 box. There was all these, random books for $2. And I saw it, and it was called Transformed by the Light: Life After Near-Death Experiences. And it just, sometimes books jump out at you. Yep. So it jumped out at me, and I sort of thought, I thought maybe there is something to this, So I took the book home, and I could not stop reading it. It just opened my mind, because the book described all these people who had died, whether it was cardiac arrest or just for whatever reason, and they were revived. But while they were clinically dead, they had all these very incredible mystical spiritual experiences where they were completely conscious. They had the same consciousness as if they were alive, but if anything, being outside the body, because they leave the body, they were even more conscious and could hear conversations like of the doctor down the corridor saying, oh no, that, you know, the person has died, or they could feel people's emotions that were sort of miles away, all these sort of experiences. And I suppose it just was like, it was almost like the missing piece of a jigsaw about life that I was looking for. And it suddenly made sense of everything, like, you know, and the information and knowledge that people brought back about death that they'd kind of downloaded when they were in, you know, that metaphysical space. There is so much information we can learn from people who've died. And so I up until then, I was like very interested in books about self-help and like philosophical and you know, or kind of human interest and philosophical books and how to improve myself and how to sort of understand the world more. And I just sort of got rid of them all. And all I started doing was reading about near-death experience stories. So that's sort of what so I went from like a complete terror of death to a complete openness and curiosity and intrigue and almost passion about you know, engaging in these stories of death. And I'm quite an enthusiastic person. When something engages me, I really like to talk about it and share it. And I just found that people were like backing away from me, like very noticeably, or looking very uncomfortable. And I realized that ideas of you know, our consciousness continuing after death are very much connected with religious you know, doctrine and philosophy. And it's very hard in Australian culture, I suppose mainstream Australian culture, to discuss ideas of consciousness continuing after death, to even mention words like the soul, which I've since learned the soul is the translated word of psyche, which has been with us for centuries and centuries. It's all the same word, and it's not necessarily connected to anything religious, but people have different, you know, words for it. Anyway, I just found myself just sort of struggling to talk about this, or it was almost like I was wanting to awaken people to sort of, because I was aware of how much fear there is in society generally about death, or even talking about death. And I was really, it was almost like that thing of like, you know, discovering the antidote to something that people are suffering from, and people didn't want to know. And I'm like, but I can help. Like I've learned all this information. So anyway, I started doing a PhD in photography on death, and I was my whole PhD was inspired by near-death experiences and kind of trying to sort of work out ways of communicating these ideas without scaring people. And one of the ways I learned was through photography and through the depiction of like contemporary looking ghosts, like with contemporary people, like, and I was really exploring and experimenting ways of relating, you know, the afterlife to you know, contemporary society, because spirit photography has always well, it existed almost 200 years ago. But when you look at old photos of ghosts from the 1800s that, might be in a picture of, in a portrait of somebody from the 1800s, it looks really freaky to us.
It does, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I was thinking, well, if I do this kind of, colourful, modern, contemporary look, appearance of ghosts, maybe some of these concepts will sort of get, like I can introduce these concepts and it's all fictional, of course, but I mean, that's how it is perceived, but I think there are truths to it, and it's these, or at least people that have had experiences of dying and anyway, part of photographing everyone, I started realizing that because I was always trying to gear conversations towards death, and I stopped sort of talking about what I thought about it because I knew that freaks people out. So I just started asking people about what they thought about death, and people started sort of like telling me or confiding in me all the time incredible stories, like involving mysticism around death or deathbed visions, or just sort of interesting stories to do with death and dying, perhaps their grandmother dying and what happened during that time of death. And I started thinking, wow, everybody has something to say about this subject, and if I can leave out what I'm thinking and just allow the person to say what they think, all these amazing stories, come through. So I think it just came to me quite quickly. I just thought, I'm gonna do this project where I invite originally 50 Australians, and originally it was 50 Australians in the sort of end of life death field, to write a handwritten letter responding to what is death, what happens when we die. And I just, because I was wanting to read them, I really wanted to sort of know myself. So I started asking people known to me in the community, like funeral directors and some, palliative care doctors, and so I kind of started in that way, and then people would refer other people to me, and but gradually, the more I spoke about death, the more I realized just everyone has something interesting to say. And I knew some people that had terminal illnesses, and I was thinking, well, I'd really like to hear what they have to say. And so I started introducing, I had Bob, who was an ex-plumber who had terminal lung condition, and a woman called Anne who had terminal cancer, stage 4 cancer, and I just started inviting them to write letters, and then I was wanting to know, what the bus driver thought, what the postman thought, what a tattooist thought, an anthropologist thought. Like I sort of became a bit of obsessed with it. Like I was really wanting to show a diversity of views, and using photography as a tool to sort of capture people's attention through the portraits of everyone. So photography has been a really sort of pivotal part of this, and to entice people to read the letter, I have to kind of produce a beautiful or interesting portrait of somebody, and it's been a part of the project that I've really enjoyed as a photographer, taking people's portraits and meeting them, and it can be quite intimidating, I mean, there have been some people who are, quite famous, and I've you know, inside of me, I've been feeling quite sort of intimidated, but the photos have worked out, and it's, you know, it's been good. So and also I've asked people to handwrite the letters, so responding to what is death, what happens when we die, and that's been an interesting experience for people, and people find the letter writing very cathartic, or a lot of people have said they've never really thought about death, they've never thought about it, and it's given them that moment to kind of really think about it. And some people hate handwriting and have refused to do it, and I've just had to, like, I don't know, find an interesting handwritten type font, and, you know, do all of that. But yeah, it's been really interesting. But I do like the handwritten letter, which is part of the profile of the person, which is part of the website. So I digitize the letters, and I just think it's, I don't know, it's sort of, there's sort of like an archaeology, or there's something about this project where, you know, the person is leaving a kind of a trace or a mark, or, you know, their opinions about this, about death and dying in the 21st century. And yeah, I think it's become quite an interesting kind of research project.
It's very powerful. I think I read all the letters.
Oh my
And yes,
goodness!
yeah,
Wow.
yes, it's like a book to me, as you said, just all the letters come together, and they're all showing different aspects, actually, when you see. Sometimes they say a similar thing, maybe you can say, but it's not at the end. It's so personal, and each of them is so unique, especially one letter. It's Benjamin Gilmer, I guess, who is a paramedic.
Yeah.
He really struck me because his profession, you know, he's someone almost racing with death.
Yeah.
Right, and so with great curiosity, I just opened his letter. It was one of the first letters I read. And can I read a paragraph to the audience? So what we are talking about. So he says, like, for 20 years, I have been present in the moment of, or moments soon after death, hundreds of deaths. For me, being around death is unavoidable. As paramedics, we ride a fine line between fighting death and accepting it. We struggle to buy people more time on this planet, but while modern medicine is indeed astounding and developing quickly, people overestimate what we can do. If you are in cardiac arrest, no matter what the cause, your chance of survival is remote. Yet many people assume we bring those patients back from the dead all the time. Sadly, the words I say most often are, "We did all we could. Sorry." It's very powerful to me. I mean, to see that from someone's eyes, being around that much, and also he's giving a shot from the medical aspects of it, or from the beloved ones of the patient. So it's such a great letter. I can put that. Yeah.
And I always remember his letter too, because he also says he sees this look on people when they're dying, which is like, it's a look that says, but I haven't even thought about death. And he feels that part of their job is just to delay death a little bit so that they can come to grips with it. And I just found that astounding, and I think that's one of the reasons why thinking about death is so important as well, you know. So
and also, yeah, you say on your website, as letters gradually began to arrive by mailbox, you find a quiet spot and then read them like a sacred ritual. Yeah, one of the things I really adored about this project was how you hold these letters and the words with such reverence, Tina. It's so delicate and beautiful, your treatment of each letters. And I chose the word reverence intentionally because for me, reverence is a word that I contemplate on its meaning a lot. English is not my first language. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but reverence means respect, but not only respect. I guess it's standing in awe at the same time. So I love it. And yeah, I'm wondering, do you carry reverence from your art to your daily life, Tina? And actually, there is no such a thing to feel only reverence to death, I guess. It's reverence to life, actually, right? Life covers both birth and death. So how does reverence to life, including death, intertwine with your work and your personal life? How does it affect you?
I think, my learning about death and doing this project and contemplating death, and a lot of times I read near-death experience accounts, stories that people bring back, and it has definitely affected me in my life, and the reverence I have for life, and the opportunity to be here and to discover our soul purpose and why we're here, and I know it's not about me. It's about, like, I look at all life with reverence, and to the smallest, if I can save an ant, that's or if I can save a snail, that I hate it when I step on a snail. I feel devastated. They are such interesting, curious, amazing little beings. I think learning about death I think learning about death and contemplating death really awakens you into life, wakens you to life. And it's all the messages, it's the messages people come back with, which is about, when people leave their bodies, they have these near-death experiences, and they sort of travel towards the light, and often they meet mystical, like a mystical light being, or a deceased relative, like a deceased loved one, and the person often will say, what are you doing here? It's not your time yet. You have to go back. So it's with the sort of studies I've read, it's people that haven't been able to continue on into the light, or into death. They've been told, you've got things that you need to do, like predestined things that you need to do. So I'm constantly paying attention to everything now. Like, it's like every opportunity that comes by me, I see it as it's an opening or a door, and it, like, if I don't open that door, I don't know what's behind it, and I find just getting out of bed every day, it's a really important thing, and it's a really important thing to try and leave the house every day, because you just never know who you're going to meet, or what's going to happen, and I'm always interested in noticing synchronicity. It's almost like I think my eyes are always open now to whatever's going on, and even meeting you at the exhibition, because I'd seen your I hadn't met you or known who you were, but I'd seen you on Facebook somehow, and noticed that you were a death doula, and which I filed in my head, and then I met you, and it was like, of course I'm going to meet you, like, of course, and it's these things where you you know, someone asks you for coffee and you go, and then something else opens and this opens, and then you meet somebody else, and I just think I think the world is full of so much that is unseen but present. And it's like we have to kind of become more practiced at tuning into the invisible world around us as much as the material world. And I think actually my focus has definitely shifted way more from the material to the immaterial spiritual world. And I mean, I really would love to be able to communicate with my deceased relatives or my deceased loved ones, but I know that I'm not sort of, I'm not, I don't think I'm necessarily someone that's clairvoyant or someone that has those skills, but occasionally things happen, or, dreams happen where you're meeting someone that's deceased, and you really feel like you've, reconnected with that person. And so I suppose I have found a lot of validation for the spirit world from, near-death experiences. And I find myself living in awe most days, if not every day. I mean, I just think, driving to work, I work as a support worker in mental health part-time, and it might take me an hour to get to work, and I just make sure I'm in my car. I listen to very sort of atmospheric, ethereal music to just so that my mind can actually go where it needs to go in my day. I'm not just responding to a radio station or some horrifying news. So I spend a lot of time just kind of connecting to beautiful music that helps me and my thoughts to kind of wander where they need to be. It's for me, I would have to say my sole purpose is very much related to wanting to help lessen the fear of death, like wanting to sort of share my curiosity about death with others, but in a way that isn't scary, like and in a way that I'm not just saying blah 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 blah, this is what happens. They're with the questions, what is death, what happens when we die, what I love about it is that there is infinite answers to those questions, and every single person has would have a different answer to that. And so they're questions that are never going to be dull or tiring or exhausted. They're always going to bring forth something new. And I have some other things to say, but we can just keep sort of, I don't know if there's another question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I believe there's always like visible and invisible connections among all of us. And I'm really appreciative there's invisible ones that put us together. What can I say? Yeah, I totally agree with all the things you said. As far as I know, the project received great attention. How are the comments and the feedbacks that reached you about the project? How are the comments or the feedbacks about the project?
Well, it was interesting with the first series when I started putting up a letter a week on social media. Facebook and Instagram on the death page. And straight away, so this was back in, I think it was 2017. So I was blown away by the positive response to this project. You know, it was I had no idea how people would respond, and people seemed very, very you know, enthusiastic to read the letters and to, I mean, I received a lot of response saying that I'd helped people overcome their fear of death, or helped people feel more comfortable with death. And I also, early on back in 2017, I got an email from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation asking if they could do a podcast or like a radio show about the project. And that was quite astounding, actually. And one of the amazing things was they had actors, voice actors, read some of the letters. And I remember I was listening to the podcast, and I was thinking, wow, what interesting things to say about death. And then I was like, hang on, this is from my project. Like I sort of was like, wow, having somebody like read it like out, and you know, it was really amazing. And then so that was broadcast in Canada, and then I had like people in Canada start writing to me and just, you know, sharing stories, and just what a great, you know, project it was. And so it sort of it was really astounding. It really was astounding. There's also a cemetery in North Carolina who contacted me and asked if they could do a death letter project too. And so that's online as well. I gave my permission for them to do that, and they actually won an award for the project through, I think it was through a kind of like a cemetery type sort of awards thing, which was interesting as well. And
That's
I
great.
suppose one of the most amazing things that happened to me was I was driving my car home from my work in about August last year, August or October, and the phone rang, and I thought, I don't know this number. And then it was someone from the BBC, and they were like, you know, Ray Martin, the journalist, he's really interested in your project, and we're creating a documentary on that's going to be broadcast in Australia called Ray Martin, The Last Goodbye, and that's coming out in August. But yeah, I spent over three hours speaking to Ray Martin in a cemetery, all about death. So it's a subject that touches everyone.
Touches everyone. That's so true.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this project is that I'm asking people specific questions that may not otherwise exist, you know, in their minds or in their lives, that people are asking them to respond to. And as a result, people are telling these stories that may otherwise just, you know, sort of be untold. You know, that they're telling stories about death, and sometimes they're ordinary, sometimes they're extraordinary, but both are so interesting. And it seems that there is not too many forums in which people are able to share such stories, whether they're ordinary or extraordinary. But, you know, in the last 10 years or so, there are now a lot of death cafes where people are coming together in person. And there's a growing sort of number of people studying to be, you know, death doulas. Like I think there's a resurgence in people reconnecting with death, you know, people wanting to sort of be reconnected with death and kind of reforming rituals around death, like or wanting rituals around death, like especially in you know, in Western countries where I think there's a lot of research that shows that in Western societies there's a great move away from religion. And it does, I'm not necessarily saying we have to be religious, but I think rituals can be really beautiful, you know, things, and can really help guide us through, navigate us through the end of life and beyond life kind of phase.
We are not machines, right? At the end, we feel. And then we would like to, when we, sometimes I say people don't want to talk about that. Sometimes just, I think, oh, Berna, you generalize it too much, because I know there are people want to talk about death, but they don't have space for it. As you said, because the friends are running away, family is running away when you want to talk about it, but death cafes serve it perfectly. Yeah, but there is a population, the part of the population really wants to talk about it. And then, but they don't know how, they don't know where to start. It's also a vast object as well. Like, just, are you going to talk about afterlife, or are you going to talk about the dying process, or before? So which part is interesting for you? So yeah, I really appreciate what you are doing with your creativity and then your art as well. Art is also a great facilitator, I guess, to me, right? To just start a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And then elaborate it, yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes and because it's more than words.
That's exactly it. Exactly, yeah. I mean, words can only describe so much, and I think in the English language, you know, we really don't have enough words that can describe, you know, feelings and emotions and the immaterial world. Like, there's so little words for that, and I think that's what I've always discovered. So, you know, music can so much better describe feelings and you know, those types of emotions, and so can art. So can and for me, often it's to do with, it's, you know, light and color. So you know, the feeling of light, the way the quality of light, the way yeah, I mean, I the more I learn about consciousness, you know, I believe light is consciousness. I believe water is consciousness, and I'm starting to research into that more. You know, color is consciousness. So yeah, so in art, you're you know, using these devices, you know, in lots of different ways that you're able to communicate way beyond words. And so and I think part of the photography I was doing, where I was photographing people in relationships, and then I was creating one as a ghost, like transparent. I think sometimes when you see something and you can visualize or imagine, like if art can help you visualize or imagine something, it's quite a powerful thing. Because I think, you know, with death and with the idea of consciousness continuing after death, and it's very hard to grasp. And I think through the portraits I did, it's like I've given this you know, this static photo of a transparent ghost relating to somebody else that you can just continuously focus on. And I think through focusing on it, you know, your mind does sort of start imagining these kind of concepts. And so yeah, I plan to continue working in this area of sort of yeah, like bringing out these ideas of human consciousness and our you know, our sort of infinite being, as far as I can tell. You know, energy isn't born and never dies.
Yeah, your last exhibition really fascinated me in that sense. It's so striking photos. Even I don't call them ghosts, you know. When you said ghosts, I'm like, oh yeah, they are ghosts. Like, but I never named them as ghost, Tina. I know it was very obvious in the photo. Yes, when you said right now, they are ghosts. But like, also what I get from your exhibition is that it's the love in the photos.
It's what?
Love. Like the love doesn't vanish when our loved one dies, you know. We still carry the love. We still feel their presence around us. So in that sense, the images you created, 1,000 times powerful than words to me, to see the love there, to feel the love there. But at the same time, it's very challenging, right? Because you are challenging some assumptions with these photos, I guess. Our reality and mortality. Is this what you were hoping for at the same time, to challenge people about their assumptions?
I think I've always been drawn to that sort of space of challenging people. I mean, I like being challenged. You know, I love having my mind opened more. You know, being in awe of more. And yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just trying to you know, open people's minds to new possibilities of you know, who we are, and yeah, just all of that sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, great, actually. So what are the sorry, go ahead.
Well, I don't know, the longer I live and the more I contemplate these matters, and the more I witness death in, you know, friends, family, or even pets, it's like I just see these continuing cycles of people, you know, people being born, people dying, and it's just, you know, it's like a tide or something. Like, you know, the world's constantly almost in a state of like, it's not really recycle, but it's just people coming in, people going out, and I'm sort of,
I call it as a door. Like we are using the door, the same door, going out and coming in.
And I'm trying to become less attached to, which isn't to say that I love anything less, or that I would, you know, risk breaking my heart, because I believe to fully live, you have to risk breaking your heart. You know, you have to be prepared, like to love something fully, and you have to be prepared to almost be decimated. And I suppose I'm becoming more prepared to do that, but in the knowledge that I know people come and go, pets come and go. I'm becoming more aware of that, and I'm finding that, maybe that happens well, it happens as you get older, like the number of people you know,
Mhm.
the number of animals you know, it you know,
Yeah.
it becomes higher. And you're right, they are always with us. We carry them. And I suppose some of the the ideas or knowledge I've learnt through reading about people who've died and can remember what it was like in the afterlife. I just need to pause for a minute because I just had this like brain. I can't even remember what I was going to say. I can't even remember. Oh God, what was I going to say? Yeah, I suppose, what I'm remembering is that our relationships with each other they never. I don't believe they actually ever die, or our relationships end with anyone, whether it be your loved ones or your enemies or your people you like or dislike. Like they're just these open-ended, stories or relationships, and we, we're always together, whether someone is on, in physical form or immaterial form. And I suppose at the moment I'm very conscious of that, and just because I've had 2 cats that have died in the last few months who I was very, very close to, and the more I realize that we are infinite beings, it's lessening my grief. Like I have been grieving, but I also know that we'll see each other again, and it's somehow helping me, and those spirits, I don't know, I'm just aware of them being around, and that probably the older I live, if I get that opportunity, I'll have more and more spirits with me. Sometimes I feel like that, as long as I, sort of acknowledging them, or I want to acknowledge them. And so I think life is becoming more and more interesting, as I'm getting older. Yeah.
I remember one of the patients in the hospital one time, I think she was around 90, and she told me that even though I don't see them, the room must be very busy right now, like with all the friends and then the families, because she was feeling all of them. She said, I don't see them, but like I feel them. It's very busy. Probably, yeah, as you said, she was feeling their presence, she was feeling their love, and then she was kind of ready to go.
Wow.
Ready to go.
I haven't worked in a palliative care ward, or I haven't witnessed that phenomenon myself, but it's something that's quite known about, where when somebody is dying, often in the last sort of few days, that they do start conversing or acknowledging spirits around them in the room, and having conversations, and sometimes it does seem like the room is very full with the person's ancestors, family, and it's and I love being open to that, or I love that I know that, and I being open to that kind of knowledge, and it really reaffirms lots of ideas about what people say who've died, about that our consciousnesses never end, they're still there. And those people that didn't come back to their bodies, that are there, they're still there, and guide people who are dying over,
Yeah, there are so many things about it. As I said, to talk about that, when you said that it impacts, like, I don't know, it impacts my daily life, how I perceive the things. how I'm being reverent to everyone and anyone on this world. So I'm, in that sense, I'm really, the only word I can say is that I'm grateful, Tina. I keep coming to that word but it's so beyond world, so beyond word, and I can say is I'm grateful. I'm grateful to just to contemplate on that, and it brings. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm checking time at the same time. Almost 1 hour is up. Time flies again. Oh, I love chatting with you. With you. Yeah,
absolutely.
but to wrap up, I wish you to continue your work with all my heart. I'm looking forward to be your exhibitions again, and please help us to explore, and yes, to even challenge us, with your art. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tina.
And thank you so much, Berna, for having me on and allowing me to share, you know, my own thoughts, you know, on death and dying. Thank you very much.
Thank you.